Fujifilm has announced their entry into the cinema camera market with the GFX Eterna. This is a medium format, whatever that means. It's kind of a vague term these days, and depending on what you're counting and how you're adding it all up, it's just a bigger sensor than full frame, which is also kind of a poorly chosen word. 35 millimeter digital film, I guess, is what everyone says full frame is. And this is bigger than that by a factor of like 1.7 times, I think. When it comes to the actual crop factor, when you're trying to figure out what your focal length is going to look like on a camera like this, your focal length would be multiplied by 0.79. So I think I saw someone asking a question of like, does it have like a negative crop factor? And it's not technically negative, but it's sort of like that. It's less than 1. So if you're using a 35 millimeter lens, for example, you would multiply 35 by 0.79. I think that math is correct. And you would get your full frame equivalent looking lens, which would be something around, let me do the actual math here real quick. I can't do it in my head, but it'd be something in the like 20s, I think. So if you do 35 times 0.79, that gets you a 27 or a 28, somewhere in that range in terms of focal length equivalent to full frame. But this terminology is really annoying and I think mostly confusing to people who don't really understand it. They just want to know, like, is it going to look good? Is the camera going to do what I need? What's the dynamic range? What's the resolution? And yes, there is a place for larger sensors because theoretically with a larger sensor, you do get better image quality. That's the main advantage of full frame over something like APS-C or even Micro Four Thirds. Just with literally more real estate to capture the image, you can do more things with those photo sites and get a better, more pleasing image. Usually a larger sensor comes with more dynamic range, usually sometimes more resolution, but it also has its trade-offs as well. You're typically going to need larger lenses. In the medium format category, those are not as common as full frame lenses, so you're probably looking to spend a little bit more. Things tend to be bigger, more expensive, and so it's really about, as always, it comes down to choosing the right tool for the job. For me, this style of camera, I sort of understand why it's popular, but I also don't. These cinema box cameras that everyone is so excited about, the Blackmagic Pixis, Lumix has made a couple box cameras. You've got Red, the classic box camera company, making these cinema cameras that are basically just a cube, a little box that you can attach a bunch of stuff to. And I think that makes sense for filmmakers, for Hollywood, when you're going into a production and you're going to rig out the camera with all the bells and whistles and all the little add-ons and doodads. I think that makes sense. For a lot of people though online who are maybe in the YouTube space, maybe they're independent content creators, maybe they're small business video production people, maybe they're shooting weddings or commercials, I don't know, whatever you're doing. For me, the hybrid style, the photography camera where you actually has a grip and you can hold it in your hand and it has everything more or less built right in, seems to be the better fit for the way I like to make content. And I'm surprised more people don't embrace that same style. I think maybe it's still a little bit lingering in the back of our minds that, you know, a photography camera is less than, it's inferior. You need a real cinema camera, a real box camera to do any professional video work. And I think technically that can be true. Historically, it certainly has been in terms of feature sets, codecs, resolution, dynamic range, inputs, outputs. These box cameras come with a lot of the professional features you'd expect, but I think that's also selling the hybrid market a little short when you consider how much has been added to those cameras over the years and how much has been adapted around that model. You see many camera rigs nowadays built around a more photography-centered camera or a hybrid camera that is built to be a box where the screen flips to the side. And that's not what I personally do, but I understand why people might want that. There's certainly a time and a place to look the part, to kind of put on the show, to have equipment that reflects your skill and capability. So I do understand that you might want something that looks more video rich in terms of features. You might want something that looks more cinematic in terms of just the aesthetics of the product. But I do wonder with Fujifilm offering up a box style camera, if that really will make the waves that they're even expecting. I can't imagine they're wanting to sell sell it like hotcakes. This seems to be an oddly specific, very niche product. So I'm glad it exists. Don't get me wrong. I just kind of surprising, unexpected to say the least, because I think they're GFX cameras from Fujifilm anyway. You're talking about medium format. You're talking about a segment of the market that's already smaller. And then from that segment going to like the cinema market, which there is something to be said for people who just want to chase that shallow depth of field, the buttery bokeh, the more bokeh, the better. Those kind of people, especially when it comes to video, for whatever reason, that's very, very popular. There's this weird like mindset of just let's blur everything. So it might sell well. Typically what I tend to like is the opposite of what's actually popular, what people actually end up doing. So if I don't like it, maybe that is a good sign for it to say that like, oh yeah, other people will probably want this. But I do wonder who it's for. When I look at something like the Blackmagic Pixis, that does make sense to me because I understand there are a lot of independent filmmakers, whatever that means, who want an affordable cinema camera. So something like $3,000, very reasonable. Get the box camera from Blackmagic and go have fun, make your movies, whatever you want to do. But when I look at something like this from Fujifilm, if this Eterna does come out, who's to say what the specs will be? They've just announced that they're making it. They haven't really given any insight to the resolution, the dynamic range, the performance. There's no specs yet. But I imagine when it comes out, it will be quite expensive. And then you're investing in brand new lenses because I can't imagine there's that many Fujifilm shooters right now who are eager for this type of camera. So it seems to be, maybe potentially wanting to attract new users to the Fujifilm ecosystem, which may be successful. Who knows? We'll see. But it just strikes me as a little odd, like a strange choice in terms of what Fujifilm would want to be investing in. After all, you've got companies like Red, who seemingly were on top for the longest time, selling out to Nikon. And from all the rumors and speculation online, it sounds like that wasn't actually that expensive of an acquisition. It sounds like Nikon was able to pick up Red for a steal. Now, I don't know that for a fact. I have no insight into those dealings, but it doesn't sound like it was terribly expensive to buy a company which had so much prestige. Red was the top dog for the longest time. Now, that might not always be the case when you're looking at what actually gets used on a Hollywood set, but in terms of the online space, in terms of the buzz and the hype around products, which maybe now thinking back and reflecting on it, you need a little bit more than hype. If just because everyone on the internet thinks it's cool, what really matters is consumers, people to actually buy your products. And if people in Hollywood aren't shooting Red, and if people on the internet aren't shooting Red, then who's buying the cameras? Which makes me wonder who Fujifilm thinks will be buying this camera, the Eterna. Is this going to be a Hollywood, movie making machine, like to compete with an Alexa? Is the competition Arri, or is the competition Blackmagic, or is the competition someone else, Canon, perhaps? It's just a very, very small part of the market that actually would be interested in something like this. And I just wonder who it's for and who they expect to be gobbling these up. Please let me know if it's you, if you're excited for something like this. Leave a comment down below. But not just excited. Someone who actually considers themselves willing to buy something like this. Because even though I think this is cool, I can't actually imagine myself buying one. And so that's maybe why you hear the hesitation in my voice. And my point of view is a little bit like, this is a little strange, just because I personally wouldn't want to actually buy it. Do I think it's cool to have medium format video, medium format movie making? Yes, that's great. Let's have more options out there. Sure, why not? Fujifilm, make it happen. But if I think of the things I would actually buy, they're probably cheaper than whatever this is going to be announced at. And even if it were affordable, considering all the features, I still would be skeptical of buying a camera like this just because of all those reasons I've talked about. The box style needs to be built out. Takes longer to set up. It's not run and gun. It's not quick to use. You're constantly building it and disassembling it. It's going to require bigger batteries, bigger lenses, more expensive things to go along with all that. And to actually get the most use out of it, you're going to have to build it out into a complete rig or kit, which nowadays just isn't my style or my intent. When I'm on a shoot, I want to be productive. I want to be shooting and capturing content. I don't want to be worried about setting up matte boxes or setting up follow focuses or shoulder rigs or anything like that. So I kind of want the camera that works right out of the case. which for me tends to be that hybrid style, something like the S5 Mark II or the Lumix GH7, both of which I really enjoy shooting with because you can basically grab them and go. There's not a lot I need to add to it, and if I do want to add to it, I can, but it's not a requirement, as much of a requirement as it is with these cinema cameras that really almost always either take longer to set up or require some kind of dedicated team, your assistant camera operator type people to come help set it all up, build it out each and every time, which is certainly a style. It's just not my style. So it's a little bit one of those kind of like, oh, I guess we'll wait and see what comes of this. But I would imagine that people interested in this might be more interested in something like the Blackmagic Pixis, which is already making its way to people's homes. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see.